to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we do attendance or anything else, I would like to ask for a moment of silence for our friend and colleague, Scott.
Okay. This is my book.
Thank you. 10 minutes.
Taylor? I have him.
And Sarah.
Sarah, yep. And Ann said she was going to be late, but she came.
These pictures. Actually, dear.
And some adjustments to the agenda under 5, approval of meeting minutes. Motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Phoebe. Any discussion, errors, or omissions? All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Oh, let me see. Lena is up. Doug, are you up? Tammy? Scott? Phoebe? Joel? Lynn? Dale? Steve? And Bob. Okay.
Opposed? Not voting?
Mike and Andrew.
Oh, we're waiting for this one. We have a tour of the adult education, which I don't know if you got to see the menu that gets sent out, but so is that enough for everybody back here?
Absolutely. This
So
tour is not
if
just for the board, it's for everyone that's in
If you're worried about
attendance
missing
tonight.
supper, that menu was on, you ought to come with us.
So the food will be the last thing that we do this evening, so I'll just so we'll go around to each classroom and I'll just tell you a little bit about different programs that we have. You'll be able to meet some of the medical assisting students tonight and the culinary folks, and then try some of their delicious food. So we'll take you on the
Help?
You're good. You're good.
Ready?
Yeah.
Sam just sent a picture of you eating those.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I just wanted to give you a couple of updates on some things that are going on. First of all, it's unfortunate that I inform you that we will not be holding a unified basketball program this year. We identified students at the high school that would be eligible to participate. I sent a letter home to all the parents. I met with them one evening at the high school. One parent showed up. That parent was very interested, would love to be involved, but because of timing, most likely early after school, he would not be able to do it, and therefore, because he wouldn't be there, his daughter wasn't really all that interested and didn't want to do it either. We ended up with just 2 or 3 interested after we made phone calls home and explained the program. So can't really run a program with just 3 students. However, we would like to explore that again and as we look at next year. So whether you'd like me to come back and ask for approval to do that again, or you want to just give me the approval to do that is up to you. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about is I'd like to hold some, let's go to the other thing first, and this isn't on the agenda, but the Jake Lord, I just wanted to update you on that. Jake Lord Foundation fundraiser is the day after Thanksgiving. We have donations pouring in, including items from the Boston Red Sox, New England Patriots, a lot of large donation items. They're having a Facebook auction that's starting on Monday, that will go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then there'll also be 50 or so auction items available at the day of the event. So that's kind of going really, really well so far. The final item that I just wanted to discuss with you, or just to let you know, is that I'd like to hold some public meetings regarding the future of the football program at Spruce Mountain High School. And I will hold meetings at the high school probably starting in December to just discuss with parents and public about what direction we need to be heading into.
In regards to
In regards to numbers, our numbers are dwindling, and we need to explore how we're going to address that issue.
Were you thinking about going to 8-man football? Is that what they're probably about? You can.
We need to do something, whether it's that route or explore possibilities of a cooperative team. We're going to need to do something. Looking at our numbers from this, what we expect to see next year based on graduation and what we have returning, and then what we have coming in, our numbers are not real high. So we really need to sit down with coaches and parents and public and have that conversation. So.
What are the numbers now? I mean, if you had a guess, I'm not holding you to it.
I would say returning mid to high teens. This is a program that when I started 2 years ago, we had 50, between 45 and 50 in the football program. So, and then from the information that I'm getting from AYS, there are possibly 10 coming back. So, those numbers are not real high to try to run a standalone 11-man football program.
And that's freshmen through, that's all your teams, not just your varsity, your JV, your
Correct.
freshman, that's total.
Correct. Yeah.
For your unified basketball,
Yes.
have you reached out to any other schools in the area, maybe?
We talked about that when Gary and Ian came in and met with us. The issue really revolves around scheduling and transportation when you start trying to do cooperative, especially with the population. It's not, when you do a cooperative like with wrestling or ice hockey or something like that, a lot of times kids have licenses and can drive to practices or whatever. With a lot of times there's not that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you. Public comments?
No.
Any board comments?
I don't know if Mrs. Cullen wanted a motion or something, but I would think we could give him permission to approach it next year, so he doesn't have to come back to the board, look into the interest for the unified basketball.
Why don't you put that in motion?
I move.
Quick clarification, what did our original motion say, to have a year attached to it?
No, it just gave me the opportunity to, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, that's the, yeah,
I believe that it was just to explore the opportunity to provide a unified basketball program at the high school.
because I think if we don't specify a year, that motion still, like, our judgment still stands on that, and we can, I mean, that's my opinion, you could probably check that out, but I think it doesn't have a date on
We
it.
have a book for it.
So I just question how to make a motion.
Yeah, I think that's.
Okay.
I think we'll post that. We'll push it.
We just have dessert.
Yes, we have dessert, I'm sorry.
We're just putting it here.
Bringing dessert, don't apologize.
Yes,
We forgot to tell you when you guys come in to get dinner, we had dessert.
yes.
Enjoy. Pumpkin mousse. Thank
Homemade
you.
whipped cream, everything.
That's very good.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other board comments? Superintendent?
Can't match the dessert, so I might as well just pass, right? I had 2 administrative team meetings since the last board meeting. Discussions included working towards next year's budget, ways to gather data, and where and how to store it best in order to make it accessible and useful. Also discussed the focus model for teacher and administrative evaluation. I also met twice during this time with local MEA President Nathan Harnden. We try to meet at least monthly to consult with one another on issues going on throughout the district. On October 28th, I attended my monthly superintendent breakfast meeting with the superintendents from Western Maine Regional Service Center. Also on the 28th, I had a meeting with the J-Town manager, Shiloh Lafreniere. On the 29th, I attended a meeting with the board's negotiations team to prepare us for upcoming negotiations with the Teamsters. On November 1st, TJ and I attended the Foster CTE Center Superintendent and Principal Advisory Board meeting. This committee meets every other month to gain insight on career and technical education at Foster Tech and to find out what is happening throughout the state in regards to the supporting aspect of education. The Buildings and Grounds Committee met with Tom Seekins from Siemens last night to discuss the possibility of a phase 2 on our building upgrade projects. We'll be signing a letter of intent for them to go forward with their needs and financial analysis. I'm still continuing to get out to all the buildings. I actually received a nice compliment from a staff member the other day. She stated it was great to see me out in the buildings and that she has seen me more in the first few months than she had seen any superintendent ever over the years she has been in employment. So I'll keep that up.
Any questions for Scott? Right. Administrative reports, Ken.
Sorry about the cold there. Since our last meeting, there really hasn't been any major issues, other than the fact that I'm afraid the winter has begun. If you're interested in looking at the new pickup that we purchased, as soon as you walk out the door on the left, up there. I did get a chance to try it. We got it last Friday. We had that little storm, so it was good. It was a good little storm to try with around here. And I think it's going to be a great asset to this district already dealing with the V-Power thing. I think something to push back things better, and I think it'll become a good pizza report for us. To go along with that, the only little project that we're doing right now is that we're removing a piece of fence over at the primary school. If you're familiar with the back section of the primary school, there's a sandbox. Right there, we're taking away 8 feet of fence there and putting in a gate so that we can open it up so that I can get on the playground and plow off the playground during the wintertime, the asphalt part. I think that would be a good thing. It'd be a good thing for the kids, and so we should help out there some. We have installed propane detectors in our high school, in our middle school, and our elementary school now. If you go anywhere just by the boiler rooms outside in the lobbies, that's where they recommend putting them, so that you'll see them attached out there in the halls. So that, just to give everybody at ease, I guess, that would be a good thing. We did get accepted, I told you, for that, the lockdown devices. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to get those ordered up. The bulk of them will be probably installed in the summertime, and basically because it takes time, and also if some of our projects from the phase 2 projects come to pass, that we do some of the carpets and redo the tiles and things. This will fit in perfect because we have to bore into the whole into the floors to install them. So it'll be a piece that'll work out good. We'll certainly try to install some during like Christmas vacation and things, but it does take quite a lot of time for pretty much. So that's a good thing. What I passed out tonight was just an overview of some items that Mr. Albert and several of us administrators and even the maintenance guys and the controllers have put some thoughts in and some needs for the district. Certainly we know that you guys are going to have a lot of input on some other items that will go in there. You will see a lot of pricing on a lot of these items. I've gone out and got pricing from a lot of vendors. Certainly these are all going to be negotiable. Certainly going to be all put out for bids, and we'll go from there. I mean, but this should kind of give an idea of of at least this, if you go this amount, it will cover what was mentioned. I think it's important to see a lot of things, and we certainly realize that all those things aren't going to be done. And certainly, and most of them, as you go down through them, you can certainly choose to cut back on certain items on them. We just, this building here is 32 years old, the roof. I mean, it could be one that you would say, well, I think it's time to replace it. The primary school, same thing. 31, I think it is, the old section. The new section is only 19 years old, so you may say, well, let's cut off the 19-year-old, so we can get 10 more years out of this and just patch it as we need to, and maybe just replace half it. So certainly all these are really negotiable on things, and what we're going to do. The paving, certainly I believe it's a necessary thing that this district's going to start looking into, because if you look through, it's one of the worst things that happens to any kind of road in second, getting the alligator cracks and the horizontal cracks, and the water that's getting down, and that breaks the road all up. And I mean, at some point we've got to start doing some things. I certainly realize that if you look at it, and with the prices that it would come up to, it would be up close to $1 million to do it all. So I certainly realize we won't do that. There are certain projects that when the committee sits down, or if you want to sit down as a board group, we can certainly go through the ideas of why we choose certain things to get done. Within this is some safety issues. I know there was an issue brought up about changing the pathway for the drop-off of students at the elementary school building. And so within this, we got a plan of going on out back and having them drop off out back, and just to keep the buses up front. So there's a lot of good projects in here, and like I say, even last night you guys brought up some good projects to add on, and so it'll be interesting to go through that process. I guess in ending, I'd like to just say I want to thank you all very much for giving us the opportunity to have Friday off to go to the funeral. It was a good thing. Thank you.
So as you're going through this, are you working with like the Holland Strong Foundation, make sure, because I know they have projects too that would want you down the road, like 5 years down the road, so we wouldn't invest something like maybe we would do the lights of the football field, if you're thinking about doing other projects as well. How is that collaboration going between like what we're trying to do with the Holland Strong Foundation and what we're trying to do for some of these projects here? So
Really haven't.
we don't, so we're kind of, we have a team doing this, and we're going to do this. I just think we just need to communicate and see kind of how we think we're going to make some money and help each other out there.
But I think the concentration right now with Holland Strong is on the tennis courts. And then obviously phase one, as they had originally planned, was to include that soccer field. But if it's going to be done, separately, I think the concentration right now is on the tennis courts to make sure that gets done.
But I believe they have a long-term plan,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So I think we should understand that as Bill's about to me, what their long-term plan is and where, really base some more decisions on.
And if you'd like, the next time you have a building and grounds committee meeting, I would be willing to come in and answer any questions regarding the plan that they have and bring in the blueprints and everything that they have. So
I wouldn't be opposed to that. Thank you. Any other questions, Ken? Thank you.
Good evening. The new bus is in, that we got with the grant money last year. I did bring it down tonight, so if anybody's interested in taking a look at it after the meeting, I'll hang around and you can see that. The fall trips finished up this last weekend with the football team going to Winthrop. They traveled 4,373 miles in sports trips for the fall. Winter trip started today with the middle school. They went to Buckfield, I think they went to today for a basketball game. So we're getting right into that right off. So Sean's been working on the transportation module of the Power School, updating all the students, bus number, bus driver, the whole transportation. It is completely done, pre-K through 12th. She finished that up today. So that's in there, so you can go in, check your child. It'll have all their transportation or someone that has a child that's not transported, it won't have anything, or it will say transported by parent or whatever. So that's all done, and that'll help the secretaries. Basically, they can get a lot of information from that, and then if not, they should call us. The same. And the last thing, all the grants are sent in. The VW grant is in, the EPA grant is in, and that was those grants I put in for a total of 10 buses. So we'll see what happens. And I applied just the other day for round 1 of the 2021 state funding for school buses. So, and I still haven't heard if we got any from this year. It still says applied. So I'm thinking we're not going to get it this year. So, but that's it.
Any questions? Thank you. I'm sure Robin did a good job earlier, so.
Is that what they're supposed to handle?
I have 2 reports for you tonight, because Tammy is not able to be here, so I'll do mine, and then I have a report to share that she asked me to share with you. So for mine, it's pretty simple. Since the last board update in October, we have held a number of 504 meetings, staffings, or informational sessions that have occurred over the course of last month. It's definitely getting busier now that we're well into that first quarter of the school year, and referrals have certainly been coming in. We're certainly seeing a consistent referral flow. We're averaging 5 to 6 referrals per month. So we've had 2 transfers into district in the last month with active 504 plans and 0 transfers out. We have 11 active referral cases, or have had in the past month, 6 of which we have met on and closed out, and 5 of which are scheduled to occur within the next couple of weeks. We've been working collaboratively with Tammy and the Special Services Department for those cases that are being considered to shift from one module to the other. So maybe special education into 504 because maybe they don't need special ed anymore, or vice versa, 504 students who maybe need more intensive services. So I just am really appreciative of the collaboration. Tammy and I have had the opportunity to sit in together on several meetings as we're trying to figure out what's in the best interest of our students. And it's just been a real pleasure to work with her and her staff. So together we've set up a teacher training for November 20th on just next week, I guess. Is that next week? Okay. Okay, November 20th, next week, on a late arrival Wednesday, for some middle school staff, targeting some interventions for students with oppositional defiance disorder and sensory needs. Somebody likes pumpkin.
Come here, Dante. 1, 2. You have to eat this first, otherwise you're not getting dessert. That's how it works. Same rule at home.
Looks like it's going to be worth it, Dante. I mean, I'm just saying.
I ate all mine.
You're going to eat all of it, otherwise you're not getting dessert.
So that was the end of my report. Just it's been a really nice team effort, and I really appreciate the opportunity to work with her. So.
Any questions on 504?
All right, Tammy's report. She said she would have reported out the following for you, and to please feel free to contact her with any questions that you may have afterwards. K-12 behavior programs. All of the staff have been trained in the same behavior program with ties to Boys Town and TCI, which is Therapeutic Crisis Intervention. She said this will serve our district well to have a program that's based in research evidence, programming, and provide continuity across grades and schools. So when a kid moves from one building to the next, it's the same types of interventions. The middle school will now have a middle school behavior program. Mr. Kobushin will be serving as the lead teacher with one ed tech in his charge to serve students in grades 6, 7, and 8. This program will be housed in Mr. Kobushin's middle school room and allow Mr. Fanjoy's high school behavior program to focus on the kids in 9 through 12. So that's a positive shift. She said this change has been carefully and mindfully considered, and a plan to begin this change is forming up to take place after the Thanksgiving break. Tammy and a few of the teachers from the primary school met with CDS, which is Child Developmental Services. They met with the CDS representative to gain some insight into the littles who are going to be entering our district in the fall as kindergartners. Sorry, Dante. There are currently about 20 littles on the list who are set to enter kindergarten in the fall, who have already been identified or are in the referral process by CDS. So that's a pretty hefty number. That number does change from year to year over the course of the year, but that's what it's looking like right now. She said that she will meet with the representative again before spring to clarify that list of children and to meet with each family in the spring for those transition meetings. She said she's putting plans in place to hold parent meetings that will allow her to offer insight into what we're doing in school that's working so that to help kids who have behavioral or emotional issues. Tammy shared that this is something that she developed and offered for years in another district, and it had high parent attendance. Parents are looking for answers and tools and are relieved to be able to connect with other parents who also want to do what's best for their child or their children. One of the school social workers, Jennifer Stone, over at the elementary school, is going to help with that endeavor. And the last one she had, together with administration and social workers from both the primary and elementary school, they interviewed a social worker who was well qualified and experienced, but hadn't worked directly in a school setting. This person was offered the open position, but later declined. The good news is that there were 2 more applicants who possess vast experience and have worked in a school setting, so they're moving forward with that process.
Thank you, and thank you for reporting for us.
You're welcome. No problem.
For Tammy, or?
Well, for Scott, I was gonna ask an update, but it's IEP kind of related. Have you heard anything on shifting, with the new administration, have you heard anything on shifting 3-4 onto local school districts? CDS
They're
students?
talking about that at the state level. The big caveat is they're finding that the problem is gonna be with them doing that is so many buildings don't have room. I mean, it'd be nice for them to shift that on their part, but they're realizing, are they gonna have the money to then give these school districts money to build on sections of the building in order to do that. So it's still up in the air.
And how it's funded.
Yeah. But they're finding, I mean, originally they talked about being able to fund it, or they were gonna, shift money our way, but then when they realize does that mean they're gonna have to ask for expansions on buildings, where are they gonna come up with the money for that? So it's on hold.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, thank you.
Is that clarification?
Yep.
The new Behavioral program for the middle school?
Yeah.
Is that teacher retiring this year?
Yes.
Okay.
But he had been a resource, so we didn't bring in anybody new. They were able to shift part of his caseload, because he had middle school and high school students with resource. They were able to shift part of his caseload to a couple of the high school teachers, resource wise, in order to do this program as well.
Laura?
So, good evening. I just kind of wanted to update you a little bit on the breakfast and the lunch program here in the districts. We're doing quite well. Just to kind of give you a scope, this last month we served 16,353 breakfasts and 17,276 lunches in the course of a month's time throughout the district. So, I mean, as you can see, we're feeding our student population. Our numbers continue to grow. We saw a increase from a year ago in our breakfast numbers by about 1,000, which I think a lot of that we can definitely direct towards population shifting through buildings, but also I think the benefit of putting more access to breakfast for especially what we've done down in the elementary schools so far. Our primary schools, really serving that population really well anyhow. Elementary is looking better, and then we're gonna start focusing on increasing our breakfast numbers for the middle school and the high school. And on doing that, I have been working on a grant through the state of Maine, and I've kind of got an unofficial word that we will be receiving just a little over $22,000 with that grant, and one of the things that we will be doing is purchasing POS systems and updating our computer system. So that's really wonderful news because that is in need, and it's going to allow us to make sure that if we're offering a late breakfast, that the student isn't going to the first breakfast and then eating again, and we'll, obviously we can't do 2 breakfasts for each student, but certainly 1 breakfast is our goal for the students. So with the grant, we'll be able to buy a breakfast cart for both the middle school and the high school, and then we'll be able to improve the equipment that we're actually using in the elementary. The grants are not going to be at all for the primary, so the district will have some cost for their computer system down here. But I think all that is well worth it. In the process right now, we're finishing up our verification for the year for our free and reduced lunch that actually ends tomorrow. I got about a 40 percentile answering for that. It's unfortunate, but I guess that's better than what I'm seeing we had received in the past. I've done kind of everything that we are supposed to do, and then some with some cold calls, and as well as texting and emailing, and really trying to use every platform that's possible to reach out to the families to go ahead with that verification process. I have had one of our newer staff members just recently complete the ServSafe training, so that was good news. And then we also received a donation from Otis Federal Credit Union. The credit unions, one of their biggest pushes in their is to end childhood hunger in the state of Maine. So the credit unions during Credit Union Week sent out donations. When we received that donation, I really wasn't sure how I was going to utilize that money, so we kind of just been holding it. They reached out to me, and I actually met with them today, did a photo op for them. And really through some dialogue, they was like, we really wish it was more. I'm like, I really wish it was more, with type of exchange, because they are very aware that we have quite a few students and families who really do struggle. Through some just very casual conversation, the idea has come up with talking to Sarah Hayes as well as Kim Turner, were the 2 individuals from the credit union. The idea was presented of possibly doing an angel tree at the credit union in increments of lunch money, whether it be for a week or a month, and their patrons being able to take and sponsor maybe a child and pay for their lunch. And the credit union was really, really on board with that. They do a tree. I said I was meeting with you guys tonight to see if it's something we might want to continue to explore. When I presented that back to them, I told them I would get back to them in the morning, and they said, if you get the okay, I'm going to tell you we're going to go ahead with it. So I think it's a great opportunity. We're not the only district that Otis does. I think there's 4 schools that they actually do. If it's not us, it probably will be somebody else. I saw it as a very positive thing. I was thinking about it this afternoon, and this really came about 3 o'clock, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about it. But my initial thoughts were, how do you then take that money and distribute it in a fair and equal way? And my gut tells me that to go to the application process again and look at those ones that just didn't make it. They just were a little bit over, and our full paying students, they filled out the application first, and they were denied because of income. But whether it's $25 or $50 in the month of December, I think every family could benefit. So just in a direction. Do you think it's something we should kind of go ahead with or not? I don't know if you want to think about it, but.
Have any thoughts on it? Katie?
I actually think it's a great idea. I think that it's a good way for our community to
recognize, that there are students who are struggling, and I just think it sounds like a wonderful idea.
So I just want to clarify, basically there'll be hangers on the tree, and it's basically like a week-long lunch money or something like that for an individual student. That would then go to you, and then you distribute it out
Right.
from there.
I would just apply it to their account. It would just be like if you went out and somebody put $5 in your tank. It'd be all right.
But the determination of which student got it would be 100% confidential, there's no number on the tag.
Nope.
Once you got that money, you would decide. from
Yeah,
there.
I think I would have to, look at the different buildings and, and really kind of see where our needs are and,
Yeah.
One question, where they do 4 schools next year, the Given Tree or Angel Tree would probably more than likely be one of the other 3 schools.
I don't know. I mean, it was very quick, the conversation we was having. It was like, smile and let's think about this. And I said, I said, do you do it, do you have a tree currently? She said, we just decorate it. But we're not opposed to putting little tags on there that say $250 or, $25 or, $10 or whatever it is. And having members contribute. Childhood hunger is our focus.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize you through Otis Federal Credit Union and then you through the ad team to work out a methodology for distributing it like you talked about for this Angel Tree.
Do you get that, Laura?
Yeah.
Let's get Gil, so on and so forth. I'll second it.
Scott's,
Hold on, I want to make sure I have this right.
Good for you.
So Joel made a motion to authorize Laura through Otis Federal Credit Union and Laura through the ad team to
Move forward with an Angel Tree.
move forward with the Angel Tree.
But it's to work with the credit union as far as making it happen, but it's working through the ad team to come up with a methodology for
To distribute.
distributing that. Sounds like you have ideas.
Absolutely.
Methodology on dissemination of money.
Perfect.
Yes.
I can get bigger words too.
No.
Percussionary.
Yeah. I want a dictionary for Christmas.
We can make that happen.
I was gonna say.
I want the book.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
let's go.
Right over
I
there.
think I'm good.
Laura, would you read that motion back to
I
me?
know that one's got there.
No, seriously.
Sure.
Thank
So
you.
Joel made the motion to authorize Laura through Otis Federal Credit Union and Laura through the ad team to move forward with the Angel Tree to end child hunger. With the agreement that the methodology on dissemination of funds would be worked out through Laura and the ad team, basically. I will pretty it up before I.
Yeah.
Motion by Joel, second by Scott. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Everybody?
Unanimous. Any questions for Laura otherwise? Good job, man. And found in front of you, Robert's Rules of Order. No, it's not my rules, but Mike and I went to the conference and we talked a lot about this, and we thought it'd be great if everybody had a copy. We're going to do some reading from it as a group. Short pieces. This is, and by the way, this is the brief one. The regular one is about this thick. Seriously.
Just bring it back my words, that's all.
So, and if you want to read it on your own, it's great for insomnia.
The only thing I would ask is that, you know, should you have decided to leave the board, hand it back into them after you pay them.
I'm just gonna have fun with you.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Because policy-wise, it references Robert's Rules of Order revised. This is the latest version of it. We'll want to revisit that. Okay. My
Yeah.
So we must have a district staff right now.
No, probably
No,
not.
I don't believe so.
And the only other thing that I want to mention is just a reminder that the functional life skills luncheon is tomorrow at noon. I think you weren't here, and Andrew may not have been, but if you're interested in going, you can go.
Isn't it too late to sign up or?
No, I think if you give a call, you probably should go for tomorrow. Just,
I'd love to be there.
something, email it on the screen.
And also the veterans lunch is tomorrow as well.
The elementary.
The elementary school.
They already have it.
Under policy, first reading of nepotism policy. And hoping people had noticed that we changed the agenda a bit by adding informational item and action items, so that makes it a lot clearer for what we're doing as we go along. And take a motion to set the first reading.
So,
Moved by Mike, second, by Neil. Any discussion? And I want Joel to talk about this. So, I don't dare make a motion anymore, so, as you all see with this one, it's actually not necessarily one of our shortest ones, but it's one of our shorter ones. But this policy, oddly enough, we've been looking at for, well, 9-10 months now, due to some of the phrasing that's in it, comparing it to some of our other policies. And there's some discrepancies between what this policy said and what is actually in statute, where we'd actually gone above and beyond statute. And in us talking through this as much as we have through all the different variations of how we were, we kept coming back to, we felt we wanted to come back to what statute says. And essentially what you see at the beginning there was, it officially listed that if a board member had an immediate family member, there couldn't be a combination of board member and that immediate family member working for the school. And the statute does not say that for the immediate family member. There's other aspects of it that talk about it for the superintendent's role, but not for us as a board. So essentially what you see is that being cleaned up there in the first paragraph there under employment. You also see down the volunteers, there was some trying to just clarify this associated with what the statute says there, MRSA 1002-2A, around a member of the board or a board member spouse may not serve as a volunteer. So we ensured that was clarified there properly. So that's everything you see on the first page. We did talk about this one a little bit more at our meeting right before this full board meeting tonight. And there's about 3 or 4 policies that are very linked with very similar phrasing in here. And we started revisiting the phrasing. We wanted in all 3 of those, and in doing that, we determined we wanted to change another phrase in this one to match up to what we're going to put in all 3 of them. And so if you go and look at, we apologize for not bringing it directly to you, but we felt we'd do it verbally as a first reading. And our recommended change to all the board to look at is that second paragraph under employment, where it starts with by main law 20 MRSA. We're basically going to strike that whole paragraph and replace it with this: no member of the board or spouse of a member shall be an employee of RSU73. We're trying to make it much more simple and take away some ambiguity and interpretation stuff in there. So sure Laura has all that written down, word for word.
Yep.
Thank you. Now, in order for that to happen, we have to do that as an amendment to this, so. Yeah. So, I'd like to recommend amending the motion to add this change for the second paragraph of the employment section, as I stated.
We have an amendment, we have a second on that. Doug's the second, okay, now we're gonna discuss the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment?
Does somebody have the amendment written down?
Yes. I'll give it to you after.
Thank you.
And just a reminder, we'll have a second reading on this. And you will also see a first reading on the other two policies that will connect to this with that language that Holt has brought up at the next meeting.
But what you will see in your packet next, for the next meeting where we have the second reading, it will be, this one's redlined and whatnot. The next one will be, this is the final version.
Any other discussion on the amendment? If not, all those in favor of the amendment?
So everybody except for Dale?
Correct. Anyone opposed? Not voting. Okay, back to the original motion, which is the first reading. Any other discussion on that? If not, all those voting to approve the first reading of policy BCC, nepotism.
Everybody but Dale and Lynn?
All those opposed? Not voting. Lynn.
When, I thought I voted, I probably didn't hold it up.
Right, so are you a yay or an abstain?
I'm a yay.
Okay,
Okay. And not voting is Dale.
yep.
Okay, under old business, we have a discussion of the meeting minutes. You got some different samples. Scott, you want to talk about?
Yeah, I talked with Drummond Woodson about meeting minutes, and they had suggested you want to keep it as brief as possible. You need to make sure you have the motions. You can talk about that there was an actual discussion, but you don't need word for word information on that. I think part of that is I've always wanted to be careful that we're not, if the minutes aren't exact, and as Mr. Pike pointed out, and we then vote on it, and there's a mistake in those minutes, and someone comes back, they can come back on us. So if you're too specific, you can get yourself in a lot more trouble than if you just give the basics that you have to do for everybody. But still, but he also pointed out, it's up to each individual board how they want to do it.
The other thing that I feel is that we still should have a tally on who votes, which way they vote, so that's pretty clear down the road. My thoughts. Joel?
Since I seem to be doing this a lot, I'm sure all of you did go through and pull out the policy on this, and this actually is a shorter policy than the last one, BEDG, and there's not much definition in here for what meeting minutes should be. Even though there's 3 sentences in here. Even though there's basically only 3 sentences to this policy, I'll just hit it quickly. The superintendent in his or her function as board secretary shall keep complete records of all meetings of the board. Then talk about mailing them out, which is another thing. Then the next sentence is, the minutes of each meeting shall reflect the names of the members present, those absent with excuse if any, and those absent without excuse if any. That is the clarity. I mean, there is the word complete records, but that's up to our discretion.
So the policy says complete record?
Uses the phrase shall keep complete records.
motions, yes, we had a discussion.
So I don't think this is an action item, but just kind of wondering what, how people feel on it. Dale?
Well, say the same thing I said, I just emphasize what Scott said, we're paying the attorneys good money, and we probably should follow their recommendations.
Right.
That's my opinion.
Andrew?
Not being able to make all the babies in the work schedule, I like having a fair amount of detail in there, and I think Laura does a superb job of getting the basics of what the meeting is, and without going into too much detail or whatever, but it's nice to have a little bit of discussion as to who is saying what or what their opinions were. You know, if we have access to the videos, I know if it, push from the shove, you can do that to do things, but I like, when I get my mailing packet, to be able to look through and see what was discussed and what the highlights are anyway. I'd like to commend Laura for doing the excellent job that she's done and is doing.
Anyone else? And what are we going to direct Laura to do? We're kind of split on this, I think, so.
Show of hands.
I mean, Laura, can you do like a simpler one, but kind of summarize a little bit?
I can do whatever you want me to do.
Yeah, we know that.
Can you
Yeah,
try to go
how about we try it a little different next time, we'll just say discussion, brief summary, see how that goes versus everybody what they said. If you guys don't like it, I'm sure you'll tell me. But we can try that and see how it goes. I agree with Bob, I like the tally of votes because it keeps me straight on who voted where and what. So yeah. We
Would that
can
work for
try
people?
it.
Just a summarize then. Okay.
Just a comment, I think last time it was, when we had more subtime in this group here, the note was the greatest, and we kind of went this direction, we went too far to the left, and we had to come back to the right a little bit.
They're probably gonna want this stuff back.
Joel's been drooling over that.
Chris wants them. I want one. Dante wants one. Chris, get up there and get him.
Dante's
Come on.
You haven't finished your sandwich.
I gave my.
See you later, 6.2.
No, you can Goldilocks and I need dessert.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay, while Joel's doing that, under new business, we have, Maria Ryer is permission to take students on an overnight field trip to Montreal.
Yes, I'd like to propose a trip to Montreal offered to high school students who are taking French, Spanish, and art first. This is a trip that I have had experience with. I've taken this trip to Montreal a few other times. Of course, with Mrs. Dubé, who trained me. I don't know if you remember Mrs. Dubé, who was our French teacher at Living North Hall. And so I went with her a few times. It's a really great trip. It involves cultural activities for French culture, Canadian culture, and Spanish culture. Montreal is a multicultural city, and we have Spanish Quarter, and they do activities for both cultures. And as well as art, we go to Art Museum, where they did a tour and hands-on activities to create their own art. Also, salsa dancing lesson at night with a live band, and Natural History Museum, History of Montreal, touring around the Old Quarter. So it's a culture-packed trip, and it's a really valuable experience for the kids, and I propose to take the trip in May. It would be over 2 school days, so from a Thursday early in the morning, come back late on a Friday. And it's the cost is the kids or the parents pay for the trip. I do usually offer an opportunity to do some fundraising. In January, we've done a Valentine raffle or something to help defray some of the cost, but actually they have to kind of agree up front that they will pay for the trip, but then we work on fundraising to chip away at it as much as we can. Are there any questions about the trip? Yes.
Can I read the Jump Street? You going through Jump Street?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an excellent tour company. When we used to go to Boston, we went through the Jump Street company.
Yeah.
And,
They do an
they
excellent
do
job.
an excellent job.
Yeah. And one of the things I really like about them is that they provide an overnight guard in the hallway who sits in the hall till like 1 or 2 in the morning at least to make sure everyone's asleep and in their rooms. And the chaperones can go to sleep knowing that someone's watching the kids. They're not running around. So, yeah, it's a good company.
What's your chaperone ratio?
They usually pay for 1 for every 10 kids. That's what it's been in the past. I haven't actually got the details from them, but that's what I would assume. And I'm thinking 30 minimum to keep the cost down. If it gets lower than that, the cost of the bus is too high, so I keep it at 30 and maximum fill the bus 50. So, at least a few teachers, possibly some parents, but I'd like to have experienced teachers with me, as many as possible.
You want a motion?
Sure.
I make a motion to approve the Spruce Mountain High School trip to Montreal in May of 2020.
Second.
Second by Mike. Any further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor? Everyone. Great. And the junior class has.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the Vice President of the junior class, Caden Mayberry, and the President of the junior class, Taylor Nault. They are coming tonight to ask permission to hold their prom at Black Mountain. I do believe that you received a packet that I put together. They've started doing all this stuff. We've had some meetings together. If you have any questions for them, this would be the time to ask them.
Anyone have any questions? They're busy eating.
Commend you on starting meetings already for them.
Yeah.
Joel?
I was gonna ask you, do you have a theme picked yet?
Yes, it's Midnight Rose Garden.
Sure.
I move we grant permission for the junior class to have the 2020 prom off-site at Black Mountain.
We have a second? Joel? Second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Okay, in your packet, you've got a
Yeah, you don't have to stay.
co-curricular list of appointments. And 16.2, retirement notification of Eric Overshin. Hopefully you all got the letter and was able to have a look at it. And does anyone want to make a motion? Lynn?
I move that we accept the notification of Eric Kovashin's retirement with regret.
Second by Dale. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Everyone? Okay.
And don't forget that our next meeting won't be until December 12th. Unless anybody really wants to get together. I think Scott said he would cook if we did, so. And we have a motion to. Hang on, wait. Yes.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. They made a motion to adjourn, Mike seconded, all those in favor?
Kaden is with a K.
There we go.